There he is, Aaron William Freeland. Here I am, Candid Frankston. We're here to make Leaf talk Leaf stuff. So let's get right into it. By the way, how's your day coming, and how's it gone this week?
Day's been all right. Could be better. It's been a bit long, but that's all right. I got a little Chinese food coming later, I think, so that's going to make my my day just a little bit brighter.
And how's your weekend plans going?
Nothing really specific confirmed as yet. I did unfortunately opt out of the home game on the 18th in Hamilton, mainly because I didn't feel like traveling.
Nothing worse than traveling on a home game.
Yeah, exactly. Plus,
anyway.
They were going to put me in an end zone as opposed to on the sides where my seats
I David mentioned that to me, and I'll be honest with you. I everything I see on the internet I take with a grain of salt, but I'll listen to what you have to say. And I've heard from others like Gary. Gary said, no, he got really good seats. He's happy with what he ended up with. So I don't know if it's the luck of the draw, if it's the timing of when you request the tickets. I don't know, but it just doesn't make sense that if you're a season ticket holder, you end up with on the other side in the 500 level. It just doesn't make sense.
But here's my take on the whole deal. It's not our stadium.
True.
They're being kind enough to accommodate us and basically switching jersey colors for the game, but it's still their house. So, why should we get the best seats of the pick of the litter and bump their season ticket holders? I don't have a problem with that.
Understood. All right. I think it's time for a complete guide to when current and former Leafs meet. The schedule is out.
Yeah, the schedule came out yesterday. Some of the interesting parts about it are the longest home stretch they have is 6 games. Now that's going to happen 3 times, but the first one is November 3rd to November 14th. The longest road stretch they're going to have is 7 games, and that happens twice. The first one is December 22nd to January 7th, and they squash the tour of death into the middle of that one. The number of back-to-back games that they have is 11. Their busiest month is the month of March, where they play 16 games. Their busiest home month is November, where they play 9 home games. Their busiest road months are November, December, and March, where they're going to play 8 games each on those road strips. And the busiest days of the week are Saturdays, where the Leafs have 27 different games. Joseph Woll and Simone Benoit went to Philly in the same trade, so they'll make their Toronto debut together for the Philadelphia Flyers on the same night. That's going to be November 30th. So if you'd like to see the return of Joseph Woll and Simone Benoit, that's the game to shoot for. Darren Radish and Nick Paul both came from Tampa and will make their first trip back to Amalie Arena on the same night, February 20th. And Dennis Hildeby, who went the other way in the Paul team, will be playing that game as well. New Leafs head coach Jim Hiller will take on his former LA Kings club at Scotiabank Arena on November 17th. He'll return to Crypto.com Arena for the first time in Los Angeles on December 30th. New Leafs associate coach Daniel Alfredson will coach against the Ottawa Senators for the first time on October 3rd. He'll return to Canadian Tire Center in Ottawa for the first time as a visiting coach on January 20th. And finally, former Maple Leafs head coach Mike Babcock will coach against his former club for the first time when his new team, the Edmonton Oilers, host the Leafs on October 24th. He'll return to Scotiabank Arena for the first time behind the bench on November 14th.
And Bobrovsky will be making his first visit to Florida as a Maple Leaf on March 6th. Leafs have more reason to keep an eye and trade rumors. Tell me about it.
Well, contract prices around the NHL continue to rocket upwards. That certainly makes it seem like Matthew Knies the Leafs could simply want to keep Matthew Knies rather than trade him amongst all the rumors. The latest deal was a 4-year contract that the Flyers gave to Trevor Zegras. He got $9.125 million per year for 4 years for a $36.5 million contract. Young phenom Leo Carlson also got $18 million in an offshore sheet from the Flyers, which the Ducks matched to keep their center at that record-setting price. Now, Knies isn't going to be worth $18 million per, but he's a 23-year-old winger with serious talent and physical ability. If he was on the open market, he'd get more than he's making now. It's true. And while he's currently signed for $7.75 million through the 2030-31 season, if he keeps playing as well as he has and potentially improving, that contract is going to look like a bargain for most of its length. They'd be more well served, I think, to keep their hooks into him at this point. I'm sure Gavin McKenna's presence makes the wing a little bit more crowded in Toronto, but no one's going to complain about having too many valuable forwards on the roster, especially if they keep improving the way that Nyes is projected to improve.
Asset management, baby.
100%.
Okay, tell me about what the Leafs are getting in Director of Player Personnel, Crow.
So Crow has a strong background in scouting. He's worked in that realm for more than 10 years. In the past 9, he was part of the Buffalo Sabres organization, operating at different levels and hierarchies in scouting. In the last 4 years, Crow was director of professional scouting. Before that, in 2021 and 21-22, he served as the director of scouting. Prior to that, he was working as a pro scout, holding that role before 2017-18 all the way through to 19-20. He was director of player personnel before as well, meaning they're not exactly getting somebody that's fresh into this. He was the director of personnel for the USA Hockey National Team Development Program at the junior level in the USHL. The Leafs have a strong connection to the USHL because some of their recent coaches, especially for the Marlies, came from the Chicago Steel in the USHL. So there's that connection there as well. Between that position in 2016-17 and the assistant director of player personnel in 15-16, Crow worked alongside players like Brady Tkachuk, Quinn Hughes, Clayton Keller, Adam Fox, Jake Ottinger, and Joseph Wall. So this comes after the Leafs made a bit of an overhaul to their front office, including letting go assistant GM Dr. Haley Wickenheiser and Daryl Metcalf. They also cleaned out a lot of scouts, including Dave Morrison and Jason Taylor, who served as senior advisors of players, personnel, and pro scouts, respectively. That's basically where Crow thrives. So by picking him up, the Leafs are streamlining a little bit, which is what Rogers tends to do anyways, and he seems to be well suited for the role.
Yeah, that's kind of true. Where does the Leafs goaltending rank in the Atlantic? I'm going to say 4th.
Well, everybody knows that goaltending is arguably the most important position. With Chayka's first trade as GM of the Leafs, he made a deal with the Flyers to send Simone Benoit and Joseph Wall away in exchange for Samuel Ersson and defenseman Emil Andre. They did get Ersson in return to fill the void of Wall, but Ersson hasn't really performed well in the NHL so far, posting an .870 save percentage and a 3.12 goals against average. In the end, he was traded to the Senators for a 5th-round pick in the 2027 draft. On free agency day, Chayka filled the hole left by Wall in the roster and acquired Sergei Bobrovsky, signing him to a 3-year deal at $7 million per. So now it's Bobrovsky and Anthony Stolarz, 2 netminders who won a Stanley Cup with the Florida Panthers in 23-24. Hildeby went to the Tampa Bay Lightning for Nick Paul. The Swede had a 2.86 goals against and a 914 save percentage and got its first career shutout against the Lightning in December of this past season. So they're rolling basically with Bobrovsky, Stolarz, and Artur Akhtiamov as the team's 3rd goalie, who's been absolutely dynamite. Toronto's tandem of Bobrovsky and Stolarz isn't anything to be dismissive of.
Not at all.
But, based on where the Senators are sitting with Ullmark and with Detroit rolling with John Gibson and Daniel Tarasov, and Buffalo rolling with Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen and Alex Lyon, not to mention Colton Ellis.
Raymond in Boston.
Yeah. There's a lot of really, really good tenders, man. There are. I think you're right, Frank. I think they're really sitting at 4th.
And the reason I say 4th too isn't on them alone. I say 4th rising with a good chance of being a little higher. But being higher is a high bar in the Atlantic Division. Goaltending, you look in Montreal, Montreal, Tampa Bay. Florida, you would have put up there because of Bobrovsky, but he's not there right now. So we really don't know where their goaltending is going to be. So, there's a Swayman in Boston he's a Vezina Trophy kind of guy. So there's a lot of great goaltending in the Atlantic Division. If Swayman and Stolars can play to their best ability, then we're talking about a Leaf team that could end up with the second best goaltending. The best, let's wait a little while and see what happens there. But that's possible too. Don't get me wrong. The goaltenders, the players they have playing goal, they have a lot of talent. Let's move on to Nick Robertson. I guess the sentiment is blessing in disguise being the fact that he got traded from the Leafs.
Yeah, I mean, he did get dealt. He did ink a 2-year contract at $3.25 million a season. He was saying when asked on TSN Overdrive, for my full-time playing in the NHL, I've yet to have another season under contract. It was a really big focus for me. I wanted to get to a team and to settle in and give me time to get some runway in Pittsburgh. He's happy the way it turned out. He averaged 11.52 of ice time during his tenure with the Leafs, and that was in 234 games. This past season, he was sitting at 12 minutes and 40 seconds a game. Despite limited ice time, he's had 16 tallies and 32 points in 25-26. I think one of the biggest takeaways that Robertson has is always be ready. Toronto had such a talented team, he had to be on his game all the time, whether that was with Berube or Keefe. And I think that's evidenced by the fact that every time he was a healthy scratch, he would come back and score the next game. So, I mean, he was definitely making sure that he tried to take advantage of it. But yeah, the most important thing that he has here is to keep himself ready. And I think with the Pittsburgh Penguins, he has a better opportunity to do that.
I watched an hour's worth of fights with Duhaime.
Oh, how did that look?
I'm thinking that for Leaf fans, for those of you watching, if you want an idea of the kind of player he is, Little Tucker's the guy I'll mention. He reminds me of Tucker. He's a Darcy Tucker knockoff. If you watch him, most of his fights have to do with responding to the kind of hits on his teammates that he feels are unwarranted. So I watched an hour of his fights, which is like 40 fights, right? Something like that. 30 fights over the past couple of years. I think they had almost every fight that he's ever had. Anyway, the high majority of them were when the team was not leading, in other words, behind, and when one of his teammates got a questionable hit up against him.
And that's actually the kind of players that we've been missing.
And does that sound like Tucker?
It does.
Well, you'll see. You can mark my words, and then you can judge my sentiment. Let's go to football, American, not American football, European football, and TFC. MLS is back. TFC is back, and first story is about Garvin. Tell us about that.
So Luca Garvin had 3 saves. Montreal's goalkeeper Thomas Gilliard wasn't tested in a scoreless draw. Not ideal weather conditions. What with the wildfire smoke and everything still sticking around. But Toronto at 3-6-6 did snap a 3-match losing streak, but has remained winless in its last 9, and that's going all the way back to the beginning of April at 0-4-5. This was his first clean sheet this season in his 15th start. He had 1 save in the first half, and it came in the first minute. Gilliard finished off his 3rd shutout in 15 starts for Montreal, who have a 4-8-3 record. Montreal captain Samuel Payet played his 251st match across all competitions, tying him with Patrick Leduc for 4th most in club history. Toronto has improved now to, which is scary to think, but they've improved to 1-4-1 on the road, while Montreal is 3-2-2 at Saputo Stadium at home. Now, Toronto leads the all-time series 17-14-7, including a 10-9-2 record at Saputo, so that's something positive for them. They also signed 18-year-old Toronto FC2 and Toronto Academy defender Richard Chukwu to a contract Thursday as a homegrown player through the 29-30 season with a club option for 2030-2031. Next up, Toronto is going to be in New England to play the Revolution on Wednesday, and Montreal is going to be at Nashville on Wednesday.
Now, MLS, not on the pitch, but 2 former Bayern stars to talk about.
Yeah, so Robert Lewandowski was actually supposed to make his MLS debut yesterday, but the match between the Chicago Fire and the Vancouver Whitecaps was postponed to October at short notice. The reason why is thick smoke from wildfires in Canada caused air quality in Chicago to become partially hazardous to health. The game was supposed to feature a reunion between Thomas Muller and Robert Lewandowski. That may have fallen through on the pitch, but they still ran into each other off the pitch, and Thomas Muller posted about it on X. So, they'll have to wait until October to actually play each other. And it's going to be, I believe it's the October 6th, the first week in October.
Let's talk Major League Baseball and every injured Jays player's status and updates at the All-Star break.
So now that the All-Star break is over, and the majority of the teams will be returning to action today, the Blue Jays are last in the American League East division at 45-51. Now, winning the division for them, obviously, at this point is unlikely, mainly because the team's been ravaged by injuries. When it comes to pitchers, Yimi Garcia has not pitched this season. He rehabs from right elbow surgery. He threw a bullpen round last week, and an unexpected return is set for late July or early August. He had a 386 over 22 appearances and could be helpful. Scherzer was placed on the 15-day IL with back spasm. He's made a few rehab starts since then. He could be in the rotation soon. Joe Mantiply had a scope surgical procedure on his knee, but it's not season ending. There's not been an updated timeline for his possible return. And Cody Pont, Bowden Francis, and Jose Barrios each underwent season-ending surgeries. Ponce for his right knee, Francis for his UCL, and Barrios had Tommy John surgery. Addison Barger will be reevaluated in the coming days. His targeted return date is August. Jess Sanchez was placed on the 10-day IL on June 27th with a right ankle sprain. The thought is that he should be back sometime in the second half of the season. Lenny Sosa went on a rehab assignment on June 23rd, but there hasn't been anything heard from him since. He's dealing with a right wrist contusion. Anthony Santander is dealing with a left shoulder issue, but is hoping to return before the end of the season. Apparently, it's complications due to off-season surgery that he had on that particular shoulder. We haven't obviously seen much of him since he signed his deal back in 2025, so that's a concern there.
NBA, Nate Biddle of the Raptors looks pretty good and maybe working towards a contract.
Yeah, I mean, through 3 games of the Summer League, he's been putting on an absolute show for the fans. While attention was expected to be consumed by Colin Murray Boyles, it's actually been first-round pick Alan Graves, who's shown that he's been ready. But the other one is Nate Biddle. He signed an Exhibition 10 deal with Toronto to be a member of the Summer League team. He's 7 foot, 210 pounds. He's not a prototypical NBA center, but he has a skill set that could be very enticing to Coach Darko Rajakovic. Biddle was a 5-year player with Oregon and the Ducks, where he earned all Big Ten third team and all Big Ten defensive team honors. In that particular season, he averaged 14.2 points, 7.6 rebounds, and 2.1 blocks per game on 51, 34, 58 shooting splits. The spacing and shot blocking gives some comparisons to Miles Turner and Brooke Lopez, with real potential to reach those heights. He also provides a level of facilitation from the center position seen by players like Jokic and Sengun. He sees the floor well from the mid-post and elbow spots and is able to find his teammates for open looks. So he's been really something that's caught their development staff's eye. Looking forward to see if anything else comes of this for him.
Moving to the Canadian Football League, Trey Ford will start for the Ticats.
This should be an interesting one. Trey, where we go? There we go. Sorry, my screen blipped for a second there. Ford's appeared in 5 games with the Ticats so far this year. He completed 8 of 13 for 59 yards and 1 interception, while also rushing 4 times for 47 yards. He signed with the Ticats back in February. His overall stats, he's completed 367 of 547 passes for 4,710 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 20 interceptions. Jake Dolegala is going to be serving as the backup. Kickoff is scheduled for this Saturday at 7:30 p.m. against the Argos. That is the Argos home game away from home day. So hopefully some of the Argos fans will be able to make it out.
Absolutely. The Red Blacks signed defensive backs Deontay Ruffin and Jalen Jones.
Yeah, so Deontay spent training camp with the BC Lions earlier this year. He suited up in 46 games over the past 4 seasons, most specifically with the Alouettes 2023, 2024, and 2025, as well as the Stampeders in 22. He's registered 131 total tackles, including 129 defensive tackles, 5 INTs, 1 forced fumble, and 1 defensive touchdown. He was a member of the Alouettes' 110th Grey Cup championship winning team in 2023, for those who think that his name sounds vaguely familiar. Jones played 47 games over his 5 seasons at William & Mary, posting 128 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 8 INTs. He also tied the school record for passes defended in a career, was named a finalist for FCS Defensive Player of the Year, and earned first-team All-CAA honors. So it looks like they're looking to bolster the back line. I don't know if that's going to help Ryan with the start that the Red Blacks have had, but it'll certainly be something worth looking into.
Argos signed a Canadian kicker.
Yeah, so the Argonauts have picked up Brady Lidster. Lidster was originally drafted by Winnipeg in the 8th round of the 26th CFL draft, but was released following training camp. He was a first-team All-Canadian in 2025 after making 82% of his field goals and converting 100% of his extra points. He used to play with the Lancers, where he set multiple records, including most field goals in a game with 7, most field goals all time with 81, and most points scored over a career with 331. He also became the 5th OUA kicker ever to record 25-plus field goals in a season.
FIFA makes a decision on banning Argentina players for the World Cup final.
Yeah, this is rather interesting to me. As everybody knows, I'm a great fan of banter and of chirping the opposition. After Argentina beat England, several of the Team Argentina players were running around with a gigantic banner that said "Las Malvinas son Argentinas," which roughly translated means the Falklands are Argentine. In reference to the 1982 Falklands War.
Boy, that's a long memory.
Hey,
none of those guys were around then.
No, but that game ended as well for England as the Falklands War ended for them.
Not good.
No, but FIFA has determined that they are actually going to punish them after the final game. Article 34.3 of the World Cup rules prohibits displays of any political messages or slogans by players during, before, or after a match. FIFA has opened an investigation with a disciplinary committee to determine what punishments they are to face. But they said, as a standard procedures, FIFA's independent disciplinary committee is currently assessing the match reports and considering the relevant circumstances before deciding on potential further steps based on FIFA's disciplinary code.
New coach for France, it'll be the Zane.
Yeah, this should come as no surprise to anyone. He's a legendary former footballer. He's apparently already put together his new backroom staff. So the only thing that was really left to do was for him to sign on the dotted line. He'll lead France into Nations League, Euro 2028, and World Cup 2030. Now, apparently the decision had been made as far back as last November. And there was really never any doubt that he would actually be leading them. So the French Federation have said they place full trust in Zizou, granting him a long-term process. So we'll have to see how they do in UEFA Nations League, Euro 28, and the 2030 World Cup before we judge.
Concern for the World Cup final game because of air quality, thanks to the Canadian North. It doesn't look like it's going to be affected by the air quality.
No, according to White House officials who met with Gianni Infantino ahead of Sunday's World Cup final, they're convinced that poor air quality in the New York and New Jersey area will reportedly not affect the World Cup final between Argentina and Spain. We'll have to see what actually happens there. But Spain practiced for an hour outside in northern New Jersey on Thursday morning, and Argentina was set to travel north from Atlanta this morning. But according to FIFA, everything's a go. So
Lando Norris hit with 10th place finish on the grid.
yeah, this is a big one. It's his first title defense. He got hit with a setback Thursday. McLaren confirmed he is going to be getting a Ted Prace grid penalty for the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa. The problem that Norris had, was the reliability of the electronics which manage the F1 car's hybrid power system. Fitting an upgraded power electronics unit supplied by Mercedes took Norris over his allowance of 3 for the season and triggered the penalty. Norris lost 2 of the power units to failures, including a breakdown which left him unable to start the Chinese Grand Prix.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty embarrassing. McLaren said it picked Belgium to use the new unit because it's relatively easy to overtake at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit, meaning Norris has a better chance of making up at least some of the places that he's going to lose. He's currently sitting 5th in the standings, 82 points off leader Kimi Antonelli.
NHL schedule. Let's go to the National Hockey League and how Canadians fans should look at the schedule.
Yeah, so there are some dates that everybody should mark. It's always a treat to be amongst the 21,000 people to see a Habs game, especially their new opening montage and light effects. But fans will also get an Eastern Conference final rematch when Rod Brindamore and the Carolina Hurricanes are in town to kick off the Bell Center season on October 6th. The other game that everybody should be on the lookout for would be Brendan Gallagher's return with the Vancouver Canucks, and that's on February 1st. But that's in BC. The Canucks don't come to Montreal until March 6th. Fingers crossed that he hasn't been traded to somebody else by the time that happens.
Yeah, there is that. I doubt that, really. I do. I really doubt that. I just don't think. Well, maybe, I guess. But let's go to the Sens. And so do they have their top 6 answers?
The thinking here is that potentially they could. Wow, can't talk today. Tkachuk's spot in the top 6 was filled by the acquisition of William Eklund from the San Jose Sharks. While he is a very good player, physically speaking, he's a downgrade to Tkachuk. Over the past 5 years, Tkachuk has averaged 73 points a season, while Eklund has averaged 56. But at the same time, Andrei Burakovsky is going to be in there as well. It's not unreasonable to suggest on paper that the Sens' top 6 group could use a boost, but as it currently stands, I think they're pretty much where they need to be. Now there have been some noise about other people they could pick up, in particular Kane, Tarasenko, Bunting, and Laine. But based on their top 6 as it currently stands, they've got Pinto, Sanderson, Stützle, Cousins, Eklund, Ridley Greig, Stephen Halliday, Jordan Spence, Tyler Kleven, and potentially Carter Yukemchuk, who's only 20. It looks like they pretty much have a solid top 6 as it currently stands.
The Jets have signed Cole Perfetti to a 5-year, $30 million contract. This is a really good player, and that's a good contract.
Yeah, he had 32 points and 20 penalty minutes in 68 games for the Jets last season. He had a career high with 15 minutes and 37 seconds of ice time per game. He was the first pick, 10th overall in the 2020 draft, and set career high points with 50 points and 32 assists in 24-25 as Winnipeg went on to win the President's Trophy. He scored the latest tying goal in Game 7 history in the NHL to help Winnipeg beat the St. Louis Blues in the first round. He had 157 points in 68 penalty minutes and 290 career regular season games with the Jets. He's also been big for Team Canada internationally. He had 2 goals and 4 assists in 10 games while helping Canada to the gold medal at the 2021 World Championship. So the fact that they actually managed to get him a 5-year deal at $6 million per, this guy has a huge upside. So I'm glad they've actually managed to lock him down.
The Calgary Flames home arena is the Saddle Dome is about to reach its ultimate end, and the schedule will ride it out.
Yeah, their first game is going to be October 1st. They're going to be hosting the Seattle Kraken. Connor McDavid and the Oilers are going to be there on March 3rd and again on March 23rd. The Detroit Red Wings are going to Calgary on October 24th, followed by the Leafs on the 26th, followed by the Chicago Blackhawks on November 21st and March 5th, while the Rangers will play their final Saddle game contest on Remembrance Day on November 11th. Finally, the Habs are going to be paying their final visit to the place where they battled in 86 and 89 for the Stanley Cup on January 28th. And the Boston Bruins will be the second to last original 16 to play at the Dome on February 17th. Early in the season, they're getting the Carolina Hurricanes out of the way. As it stands, according to NHL.com, the Flames are 909, 549, 109, and 93 at the Saddle Dome, which is going to be closing for the final time at the end of the 2026-2027 NHL season.
Absolutely. The Oilers are taking a gamble there, and they're going with a three-headed monster in net.
Yeah, and you know what? It's going to be very difficult to try to master that. Tristan Jarry, Devin Levi, and Frederick Anderson are going to be on the season opening active roster. The challenge will be for Mike Babcock to determine who to use and when. Technically speaking, on paper, it's depth, not death. In practice, it's a bit of a high wire act.
That goaltending can kill you. But
well, that's true, and most goalies don't really like being part of a 3-goalie system because there's always some guy that gets the short end of the straw, right?
Right.
Now, Anderson hasn't played more than 35 games in any of the past 4 seasons. He's finished last season with some of the league. Jarry's track record is also shaky. He finished last season with some of the league's worst goaltending metrics. And Devin Levi remains an unproven commodity at the NHL level, despite strong save percentages in the AHL over the past 3 seasons. None of those 3 players are really a lock for 40-plus starts. Early workload estimates have Tristan Jarry at around 30 games, Levi at around 25, and Anderson at around 29. And now that only works if all 3 of those goalies manage to stay healthy. None of them clearly separates themselves from
play well when the other doesn't.
Exactly. So one of them gets hot, the math changes.
That's fine, as long as one of them gets hot when the other one's cool down.
Yeah, and I mean it's not really a question of managing 3 goalies; it's managing 3 different goalies. There's
Absolutely,
the veteran, and the young guys who've never handled a starting job at all.
Well, it's something that. Edmonton has tried everything. You can't say they haven't tried everything. Let's talk about the Canucks and their 5 biggest games of the new on the new schedule.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think I pulled up the wrong link to that one. I've got the 5 biggest games on the Flames schedule staring.
Yeah, I saw that. I wasn't sure. But if you want, talk about the Oilers. If that's what you've got in front of you, talk about the Oilers.
Well, no, actually, I think I've got it here. The biggest games that we're looking at here, obviously, for the Canucks are going to be ones where they're playing their biggest rivals. So yeah, obviously, games against Calgary are going to be hugely important for them. But it's going to be difficult to predict this. Got it. Nope, that's 2024. Anyways. This is one of those things where the link doesn't quite work out. Basically, looking at the Flames games, you're looking at October 22nd versus the Wild, December 5th versus the Capitals, October 1st versus the Kraken because it's the opener for the season, March against the Edmonton Oilers, that's in 2027, and then finally, and this is a big game for Vancouver as well, April 10th versus the Canucks. There's only one Western Canadian team that the Flames have gone to war with for decades, and that is obviously the Canucks. It's one of those things where it's regional, but at the same time, it's not only a regional rivalry. It's these teams have a history of going at it hammer and tongs for the past 20, 30 years, right? So it'll be interesting to see how all of that plays out. But, as it currently stands, I don't think Vancouver could have much of a worse of a year this year than they did last year. So we'll have to see how all of that pans out for them.
It is what it is. Let's look at the Avs, and the reason we're looking at the Avs is because of a Canadian junior coach. But I'm not sure he's Canadian. Yusiakos heads to the AHL Colorado franchise.
Yeah, so UC Ahokas was the coach of the Kitchener Rangers during their Memorial Cup run. He's actually headed over to the Colorado Eagles to coach them. Now, he did have a bit of a head start in this when he started coaching Kitchener, because he got a team of experienced veteran players to commit to his system and absolutely dominate their way to an OHL championship with a 16-2 record before an undefeated Memorial Cup triumph. I just think it was important to me, mainly because Kitchener is going to be losing a coach, which is potentially going to affect how their season plays out. I haven't seen anything indicating that they've signed somebody to replace him yet, but it's definitely something that I want to take a look at. As well, a little bit more of a focus on junior hockey is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, so I figured I'd try to at least break the ice with Kitchener here. There are going to be some very interesting storylines heading into the next season, and I'll be looking forward to covering that.
Yeah, the OHL is the CHL is a good league. Right across our country, some of the best players that play in the National Hockey League obviously play in that league. Well, enjoy your weekend, and we've got an Argo game to watch, which I think is going to be very interesting. The CFL games this week are happening. We've got, of course, the bronze medal for the World Cup, and then the championship final will all be very interesting. And enjoy the sports, everybody. Aaron, thanks for doing this.
We'll see you Monday, Frank.
Yep. He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanishi. Thank you for watching.